Hi, folks, and welcome to another episode of Careers and Coffee. I'm absolutely delighted to be welcoming Marlini Finney, who is the MD of Challs International. Now, you might not have heard of Challs International, but I guarantee you've probably heard of and probably got most of their products in your kitchen or just around the house as well. So we're going to be talking to Marlini a little bit more about her career at Challs, what Challs does, the manufacturing sector, but also her advice to young people as well. So we're going to bring on Marlini to talk a little bit more to us about that. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks, Jordan. How are you?
Can't complain. Can't complain. I've got a coffee. We're having a chat. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
But how's things been for you? How's lockdown? Are you in the office? Are you at home? What's been going on?
Well, being a manufacturer, we've been at work all this time because production lines can't be run from home. They need to be run while you're there. So it's been pretty hectic. The whole world's gone mad for cleaning products. It's great, but there's been a lot going on. So we've managed really well. Team have been excellent. All the office staff have been in the factory as well.
Wow.
It's been great for us.
That must be quite a wake-up call for some of the office team to be doing the manufacturing side. How's that been?
Well, wake up call probably describes it very well. Starting shifts at 6 o'clock in the morning. We're not used to that.
That is, yeah.
But they've all been really good. It took a bit of settling, but that only lasted a week or two. I've enjoyed it. They've all enjoyed it, and just to show how well it's gone, they've all said, "Well, we'd like to stay in the factory at least, once a month going into the future." So it's been great.
That's a very good team you got there. So,
isn't it?
tell me a little bit more about your role. So you work at Challs International. What does Challs do, and what do you do there?
Well, we are manufacturers of household cleaning products. If it's cleaning, then we have an interest. So we do all the products you can see now. Buster, Bin Buddy, Alchemy. You'd have seen our brands in all the supermarkets. I'm the managing director there, and I've been with the business for over 15 years. Finance background, and while I've been at Challs, I trained in HR as well. So I head up people and money before this. So
Okay.
I've seen the business grow from when I joined, when I was the 20th employee, to now where we're up to 70 odd people.
Wow.
It's pretty good.
That is impressive. And so I know most recently you were promoted to managing director, and before that you were sort of director, but looking after finance, HR, IT.
That's it.
Was that quite a big jump going from sort of FD to MD? And what did you have to do to prepare for that?
It's a really good question. I think for me, working in an owner-managed business, it's about being involved. I mean, looking after finance and looking after people, I naturally got involved in all areas of the business. And Graham Birchall, who founded and owns the company with him and his wife, we worked very closely together. So it wasn't a hard change, if you like. It's more a soft change. We still continue to work very closely together now. So it wasn't sort of the 1st of July last year, it switches. It was happening anyway. And I would guess that it wasn't a real surprise to the rest of the team there. But I've been working in finance all my working life. So to sort of make the step away from finance, it's still hard for me.
I mean, let's sort of rewind the clock back a little bit. What was life like for you at school? Did you always think you'd end up in manufacturing? What was your careers advice like? Set the scene for me. What was school like?
I went to school in Framingham, and I I'm not sure what I wanted to be. My parents wanted to be for me to be a doctor, no doubt.
Okay.
I was good at sciences, and that's probably my path, I would have thought. Um, I went to school quite a long time ago, and careers advice was one session. I remember we all queued up to see the careers advisor in the library. So my careers advice at school lasted for about 5 minutes.
Okay.
She asked me, what do I want to do? And I said, I have no idea. And she said, what are you good at? I said, maths. And she said, well, why don't you be an accountant? And
Is good link.
but actually, that wasn't that. I started sixth form, but it wasn't for me. I was going through my sort of rebellious 16-year-old stage. I left school, and my mother was the occupational health nurse at the chicken factory in Eye where we lived, and she said, "Okay, well, you're gonna have to get to work." So I got a job in the accounts team, and that was that, and I never looked back. So then they trained me, and I have to say that it's actually for everyone. I've always had good people around me wherever I've worked, and they're the ones that have supported me and helped me through.
That's brilliant. So yeah, I think having sort of role models and mentors as part of your career, I think it can make such a difference.
Absolutely.
And I know that you're an enterprise advisor working with me in Ipswich, and I know we'll come on to that in a bit. But for you, you just mentioned you employ 70-ish people.
Yeah.
What are some of the skills you look for in any young person who's wanting to come work with you?
For young people, what I look for is drive, enthusiasm, energy. I mean, energy is a word that I can't be underrated. It's so important. If somebody wants to learn, they will. If somebody has a passion for something, that it drives them, and just a sort of a can-do attitude. I'll just get on with it. That is really important. So it's not about the sort of hard academic skills necessarily. They are important, but I'm a 16-year-old school leaver who's trained while I've been at work. So, there are other paths to follow, but it's about an attitude.
Yeah, I suppose, you can teach them skills at some point.
Yeah,
it's a lot more difficult to teach attitudes and to teach energy. I think you either got it or you haven't. I think, that's brilliant advice.
Yeah.
And just coming back to your career, what's been some of the highs and lows for you? So some of like your most proudest achievements, but other times when stuff has been a bit more challenging and you needed a little bit of resilience to keep going.
I mean, I would say I have been fairly lucky. I've been, as I say, having good people around me. The proudest moment would be when I was appointed managing director of Challs. Challs is a business that I care deeply about, and I enjoy working. Well, I've been there a long time, but it's because I enjoy it. I actively choose it. So it's something that I care about. So being able to head that up, and for Graham and his wife Edwina to trust me to do that is a big deal for me. So I'm very proud of that. And if you'd have asked me when I started, if you'd have said to me, one day you're going to be managing director, I would not have believed you. So, that has to be my proudest moment. There have been not very many lows, I'm lucky to say. And one was some time ago where I had a line manager who was a bit of a bully, but I just didn't see it at that time. And we've moved on a lot since then, so I would recognize those behaviors. But I learned from that, and it's taught me about how important it is to treat people well and treat people with respect. And in fact, it's one of our core values at Challs.
I think it's about trying to embed that within a sort of a culture of an organisation. I mean, just on that, I mean, because I think there'll be a lot of young people going into organisations fairly soon in terms of their next pathway, and they might encounter somebody who might have that same problem, that they've got a line manager that thinks, oh, they're just a young person or an apprentice or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
What's your advice to them to be able to deal with that? Because I think that's an issue a lot of young people face.
Don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to speak up, and have confidence in your own ability, and also have confidence in what you know and what you don't know. It's not a failing not to know something. It's not a failing not to know how to do something, because none of us were born with that knowledge. We learn it, and don't be afraid to say. And I think that's one thing. I wish I had that confidence to know, well, actually, I'm right or I'm wrong, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant advice. And on Chawls, what's some of the roles you've got there? Because I think a lot of people just see it as manufacturing, and you work in a factory. What are some of the jobs there? Because I'm sure it probably ranges quite a lot.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, let me start with production. The production jobs are, yes, you work in a factory, but they are skilled roles. I mean, I'm now working on the lines. I can't keep up. I can't do the jobs that you do. They are very skilled. So you've got the line workers. You have got people who run machines down there. We've got engineers. We've got planners. We have buyers, production managers, factory managers. We've got the whole sort of facilities about the site. You've got stock, people looking after the stock, people looking after the distribution. Then in the offices we have finance, HR, the general admin, marketing roles, sales. A lab. We've got a fully equipped lab with QC. We've got everything.
Wow, I didn't know that, and I don't think a lot of people see it like that. I think they probably think, okay, well they manufacture cleaning products and they pour it in a bottle and they sell it.
Yes.
And knowing that, yes, that is a part of it, but there's so much else that goes on to get that cleaning product to the shelf of Tesco or Waitrose. There are other supermarkets available for that. So yeah, no, I think that's brilliant. But I mean, let's talk a little bit more about the manufacturing sector. I mean, why do you really enjoy working in the manufacturing sector?
Because you have that variety. You have that. You have the ability to see raw materials just be converted into this great product, and then I go out on shelf. I walk around Sainsbury's, and I think we've packed that, we've made that, we've created that from nothing, and it's a very fulfilling experience. It is great, and I'm not alone in that. People throughout our business, they feel the same pride from our products. So it's that variety, it's that making something. And actually for an accountant, it's just that the whole process around that, you get all the interesting stuff. So there are so many good things about working in manufacturing.
So there's lots of good things, but do you think there's sometimes some misconceptions around the sector?
Absolutely.
And if now that there are, what are some of those misconceptions you think that people have?
That, as you say, people just think, well, I'm just going to be on a line. I'm not going to be doing anything. I'm not going to be able to push myself. It's not a real career choice. But I'd like to get to a point where people actively choose to work in manufacturing. It's always been seen as the job of last resort.
Yeah.
You do that when you can't. When you can't do anything else, and it's not that at all. It should be something people actively choose, because manufacturing is a great environment. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, what do you think organisations, obviously particularly manufacturers, what do you think we can do to get that message out to young people? Is it the way we market it? Is it putting forward different role models? How do we do that?
I think it's lots of things. I think it's about education. It's about showing what sorts of roles there are in manufacturing. It's about showcasing those opportunities, going into schools, talking to people, explaining what the roles are. Because I mean, even my 5-minute careers advice, go off and be an accountant, I don't know what that means. An accountant is so many different things that, at 14, 15 as I was then, what is an accountant? So it's about explaining what that means. And an accountant in manufacturing is different to an accountant in audit, in different things, and so are all our roles. But if you take the production-based roles, there are so many exciting things that you can get your teeth into, really get into and enjoy. So it appeals to such a wide range of skills that you don't really experience in many other places.
I think that's great to hear. And another misconception I think a lot of folks will have, that manufacturing is predominantly a male-dominated sector.
Mm-hmm.
And here you are, a just super successful woman as the managing director of a manufacturing organisation. Does that come with its own challenges to get to that stage? And what's your advice to any other women or young girls who are aspiring to get to a point in their career that you're at?
I think it is. Well, it's a difficult one because I don't see it as any real achievement, actually. But I think I have been lucky with people around me. I'm not consciously a woman in a senior role. It's not something I'm particularly aware of. But I do recognise, as particularly in manufacturing, that it's a rare thing. But I think it's down to, as I said before, know your own abilities and enjoy it. If you love it, I think it will reap its own rewards. We all do better at things that we love.
Yeah, that's good advice. Honestly, I'm thinking of the sound bites from this. And I mean, earlier you touched on something. You talked about an owner-managed business, and that Chills is an owner-managed business.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean, and how is that different to other businesses?
Owner-managed means that somebody created the business, and that person is still actively involved in running it, in managing it, and that's what we have. And in East Anglia, we have a lot of owner-managed businesses, and businesses typically start off that way as owner-managed, but as they grow, the Marks and Spencers was owner-managed, but it's grown and grown and grown, so it's not family-run anymore. So that's essentially what it means. And there are a lot of benefits from being in an owner-managed business, and that is that the culture is much stronger. So because Graham is still actively involved in the business, that connection is there. We know who we are. We are a business with family values, in the sense that we operate as one big family. So it is something that doesn't suit everyone. There are lots of people that suit the big corporates better, and that's fine, because we need people that suit, the large corporates.
Yeah.
But it's like anything. If you get it, you love it, and if you don't, well, that you'll find something that you do love.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. And another one. So there we go. There we go. Question come up. did you have to change much due to coronavirus?
Yes.
I'm assuming they're talking about the business and not yourself. And if so, what did you have to change?
We had to review how we worked and what we did. So it was a constantly changing landscape at the start of all of this, and we communicated, we spoke to our staff. There was quite a lot of panic and fear, quite honestly, amongst everybody, not just our staff. So we immediately stopped external visitors. In production, we had a lot of external agency staff. We stopped agency staff, hence the need for other departments to cover production. Reviewed how we work, and in particular, social distancing on a production line is very difficult, but we managed that in manufacture. As long as you're side by side, you're sort of mitigating the problems from not being 2 meters apart, staggering breaks, having fixed teams. All of these things help us to mitigate the risks from coronavirus. So we still do that. We have an enhanced cleaning regime 3 times a day.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Hand sanitizing at all points of entry. Washing hands is we have to make sure we keep our areas clean, basically.
Yeah. Brilliant, thank you. And also, I want to talk a little bit more about your volunteering. So you volunteer with me in Ipswich currently. So you're an enterprise advisor. So in essence, that's local business leaders supporting schools and colleges with making sure aspirations are raised, making sure that students have encounters with the world of work, and that schools have just brilliant careers programs as well. And you work with Thomas Wolsey SEND School in Ipswich as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that's all about for you and why you decided to do it as well?
With the SEND School, it's something that I care very deeply about. I know Thomas Wolsey, my daughter used to attend Thomas Wolsey, and they are a great school, a great team of people. But for me, it's about creating opportunities, and I am a big believer. I mean, you talk about women in work and in environments. I feel the same way about people with varying abilities and varying skill sets, and it's important to harness everybody's skills because they are all different, and I believe that we all have something to offer. You just have to tap into it, and I think that children, certainly at Thomas Wolsey, still want to contribute into society, and we have to recognise that, and we have to support that. So it's something that I care about very much, and I hope to be being able to deliver something a bit more productive with Thomas Wolsey into the future.
I mean, do you think there's enough businesses out there who are disability confident and who are opening their doors a little bit more? Or do you think there needs to be a wider conversation on that they need to be doing more?
There needs to be a wider conversation, without a doubt. There definitely has to be a bigger discussion, I think, everywhere about making sure that everyone is part of society in the same way. Equal opportunity applies to everyone of varying abilities. It's not a gender or race issue. It's about everyone. It's being truly inclusive and truly diverse all at the same time.
Yeah, I think it's not just sort of cherry picking. It's sort of a go big or go home sort of approach.
Yeah,
I think it needs to be.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
I mean, if you could give one bit of advice to a business to do a little bit more, what sort of advice would you give?
I would say get involved, but keep an open mind. It's an old cliche, but just don't judge a book by its cover. Just look beyond that. If you can, look beyond that. Ask the right questions. Observe people, see what they have, listen to how they talk about the things they enjoy. I think we'll all learn a lot.
And I think on the flip side of that, what's your advice to anyone with a disability who feels like that's holding them back to get a job? But you know, they've got the skills to be able to do that. What's your advice to them?
Don't hold yourself back by your own views on what you think. It's about how you think people see you. If you try and shake that off, I mean, to be fair, I think there is a lot of instances where people are just judged by the way that they are. But go out there, sell yourself, know what you're good at, and go and talk about it, go and shout about it. And don't be afraid to say, look, I'll be really great at that. Just let me do it. Don't be afraid of that.
That's fantastic. Thank you. And I want to just sort of rewind it a little bit back to the school days. Hopefully it's good memories. Just having this conversation with you, did you have any role models growing up that sort of gave you the abilities that you now have, that you sort of looked up to and you thought, I want to be like them in the future?
I guess it depends on what abilities I now have. What I have had as a working mother, and my mum always worked. She wasn't, as she was growing up, she was never going to work, and for us culturally, the women got married and didn't work unless they were particularly progressive. My aunt trained to be a doctor, and because she became a doctor, she was allowed to work. So life was very different for her. But when she came to the UK, she started to work. She trained as a nurse. She qualified as a nurse while we were all very small, and she worked and ran the household. So having a working mother no doubt had a positive benefit, really. My sister and I both worked and wouldn't think anything of it. I also believe that it's important for all of us to support ourselves, and I think that's important. And my daughter studied and trained, and she's doing very well. She can support herself, and I think all of that is important. So I would say, in terms of working, and just, my mum's got a very sort of, you just get on with it. It needs to be done. Just get on with it. Sort of an attitude. So that's what we all have.
That's good. That's good. Just talking about sort of that parental conversation. How important do you think parents are in raising a young person's aspirations early on?
Very important. I think that subconsciously as parents we set examples. We may not see it necessarily. It's because it's not about the conversations that we have. They're still important. Yeah. But I didn't realise it's with my children what me working, what that was saying to them. And now that they're much older, the things that they repeat back, and I'm thinking, well, I didn't realise it was having that effect, So it is important to set a good example about attitude to work and how we behave about work. I'm not really one to come home and complain about my work, or I didn't have much to complain about, to be fair, but to come back and and I think all of that negative conversation also has an effect, so just be positive about it.
That's great advice. And just one final question, actually two final questions. There's a lot of young people about to embark upon quite a challenging pathway given the circumstances and situation that we're all in. and they might be feeling a little bit directionless with not too much idea about what the future will hold. What's your advice to them who are feeling like that at the minute?
I think you've got to do what you enjoy. You will do well if you do what you enjoy. There is definitely that. And if you're not sure about what a job entails, don't be afraid to pick up the phone and say, I'm thinking about this. Can I come and talk to you about it? Because most businesses, I mean, at the moment it might be different because we're managing external visitors, but you can have an online conversation. Come in, try it, have a chat to somebody who's been doing it, see what it involves, and look to ask about opportunities. And I think that's the best way.
Yeah, I think that's sound advice, because I think if you're interested in a career, the best person to tell you about that is the person actually doing it.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
they will tell you the good bits and the bad bits, and how to overcome certain obstacles to get into that sector or to get into that certain position. They are easily the best person to speak to. So that's brilliant advice. Now, my last question, nice easy one. What do you love about living and working in Suffolk? Assuming you do live in Suffolk, of course.
Yeah, I do.
Or New Anglia.
I'm very close to the Norfolk border, but I'm just in Suffolk. I grew up in Suffolk, so I grew up and lived in just down the road from me now. I've lived in Suffolk pretty much since about the age of 11, so I've been here a long time. But it's a great place to live and work. It has everything. It's close to transport links everywhere. There are so many different types of business and opportunities here. We've got the coast nearby. We've got great places like Bury, Ipswich, just here. So I think that there are lots of opportunities in Suffolk and good sources of educational institutions as well. I think we mustn't ignore that. I think if you want anything, it's all here.
God, blimey! Honestly, it should be a travel agent. I like that. That was a very good summary. Right, Marlini, thank you so much for your time. It's just been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, hearing a little bit more about life at school for you, advice to young people, battling some of the misconceptions around the manufacturing sector as well. So I've learned lots on this call today. So thank you so much for coming on to support Careers and Coffee.
Thanks very much. I've loved it.
Cheers. So folks, that was Marlini Finney, MD of Challs International, talking about her career, advice to young people, the manufacturing sector, owner-managed businesses as well. So huge thank you for coming on to Careers and Coffee. So that's today's session finished. On Thursday, we'll be speaking to Christine Hodgson, CBE. Christine is the chair of the Careers and Enterprise Company. She's the chair of Capgemini and so many other amazing organizations, and she's had a brilliant career. So tune in this Thursday, 12:30 till 1, to hear from Christine Hodgson, CBE, talking to us about her advice to young people and